Good morning. So we are December 5th, right?
Right.
December 5th, 2022. Yud Aleph
I think we should always
Kislev.
start with the Jewish date before the Jewish date.
Yud Aleph Kislev, next time of 5783. It's Monday. And we're continuing with our learning of the weekly Torah portion, Vayishlach. And yesterday we brought up some issues, big issues. And this is something that's happened to this parsha over the last, I think, 2,000 years. Although it's really become pronounced in the last 50, 60 years. That this parsha is dealing with the relationship between Jacob and Esau, between Yaakov and Esav. And that is a relationship between Judaism and Christianity. And how to navigate that very complex relationship, where most of the time there was a huge dissonance between the two, to the point where Esau could not even admit that he's Jacob's brother, that he can't even look at him and say, "I'm your brother." And in our parsha, Jacob tries to somehow bring them together again. So that's a very loaded parsha in that sense. And all the parsha deals with their relationship, right? And in Kabbalah, this parsha also contains where the Arizal, Rabbi Isaac Luria, where he learned of the world of chaos from. That he learned that before every rectified reality, there is a state of chaos. And the state of chaos is an unstable state. Even though today in physics we talk about stable chaos and unstable chaos, actually more in mathematics and chaos theory, but it's seeped into physics already. So he learns about it from the rest of the parsha, where it discusses the annals of Esau and his children, his 12 tribes. He also had 12 tribes in a sense. And from them, and the kings that they set up, the 7 kings and then 7 plus 1 kings, the Arizal, what? Because it's 7 that it says about them, the Torah says about them directly that they reigned and they died. They reigned and they died. The 8th one, whose name is Hadar, it just says he reigned. And the big difference is, of course, that he had a wife, that he was married. What? No. Mehei Tavel. Mehei Tavel bat Matred bat Mei Zahav. That was her grandfather, bat Mei Zahav. In any case, so there's a lot of stuff that's going on in this parsha that's related to this relationship between Jacob and Esau, and pretty much this parsha is around that whole discussion. So we brought up some issues yesterday, but we didn't get a chance to finish them yet. So what we'll do now is we'll first of all finish the Rebbe's direction. We'll do that today, and then hopefully from tomorrow and on we'll have time to deal with all these issues that are related to the initial questions that we raised yesterday. So if you haven't seen those, it's probably a good idea to go back and see the first installment this week. Okay, so we're in 4. Through Yaakov's ability to remain detached from the coarseness of Lavan's home, we said the Haran was a place where there is no godliness, and so there's only materiality. Not only was he able to remain unaffected by physical distractions, but he was actually able to elevate them, transforming the physical into the spiritual. And we've talked about this many times, that by the Rebbe, this was the motto of a Jew. The motto of a Jew is to be someone who takes the physical and transforms it into the spiritual. As the verse states, "Vayhili shov v'chamo tzon va'eved v'shifcha," and I possess oxen, donkeys, sheep, servants, and maids. He wasn't telling him that he was rich and wealthy and powerful. He was telling him, Yaakov was informing Esav that all of these physical belongings have become mine. Vayhi li. Li The word li, always in Torah, is understood by the sages to mean something that is eternal. V'ikhu li teruma. That's where the first place. But they also learn it at the end of the end of the book of Genesis, in Vayechi. There it says, "Chachlili einai miyain, kol chech hatoem omer li li." That every mouth that drinks this wine will say, "Mine, mine." But the mine here is, again, this is also something we've talked about in the past, that wine allows a person to touch at some level upon the eternal. It allows him to contemplate and to think about his life in a higher sense, and not just to be run down by the physical needs, the survival needs of reality. So wine was always a transformative liquid that allowed people to see beyond the mundane. So this is called, every mouth that drinks from this wine will say, "Mine, mine." And the mine here, as much as it sounds like it's a possessive, it's mine, but here it says everywhere that it says this word, li, it means that it's a transcendence into the godly realm. So what he's saying here is, I have these oxen, donkeys, sheep, servants, and maids, but they have become mine, part of Yaakov's essence. And Yaakov, we know, he's the figure that's sitting on the throne of glory. Meaning that's how the sages understand Ezekiel's prophecy. That when Ezekiel sees the throne of glory, which basically means, throne is the wrong word, right? Because it's a merkava. Merkava means a chariot. But on the chariot there is a throne. And the throne has a figure on it. So they say that it was Yaakov's figure, Jacob's figure, that was on the chariot. What are they trying to say? They're trying to say that Yaakov is carrying, as it were, the divine essence in the world. And this is the chariot upon which this divine essence moves and is transported from one place to another, as it were, from one generation to the next. So this is Yaakov's essence, implying that they have been all been elevated to the spiritual realm. So that's what he's saying. So first of all, it's a big deal by Esav. Because Esav, like we said, he's very interested in the physical realm. But he doesn't believe. What is Esav's first statement as an adult? Yaakov says, sell your firstborn rights to me. What does Esav say? Behold, I'm about to die. He's a 15-year-old kid, and he's saying, I'm about to die. So it's a person who doesn't believe in his life, who doesn't believe in life in general, but really doesn't feel his own life as having much value because it's about to die. So why do I need the firstborn rights? Here you can have them. Esav's character is one of he's a fatal character. His character is such that he's always expecting to not succeed. He's always expecting that this will have no value to it, whatever I'm doing. I can't escape the mundane. I can't escape those things that are temporary. He can't find a way into the eternal. He hasn't figured it out. In a certain sense, this is the problem that the whole world has. Right? In that sense, Esav represents the entire world. That life is short. There's not very much you can do about that. And it ends. And whatever you've done is destined to fall apart. So what kind of purpose can I find in this kind of life? So it says, Yaakov, my brother, I've found the way to bring the heavens down into the earth. I've found a way to make life not just bearable, but of value. He says, even these physical objects that we need to survive, the oxen and donkeys and so on, I've found a way to make them spiritual. I've found a way to elevate them so that when I see them, I don't only see the work I have to do in the field. That's not what I see when I see my belongings. When I see my belongings, I see tools, vessels with which I bring the infinite down into the finite.
Why did Esau wait until Yaakov came back to Eretz Yisrael to attack him? How did he even know he was coming back to Eretz Yisrael?
So he didn't. That's exactly the point. The Yaakov is telling him, I'm coming back.
Oh,
Esau didn't know by himself that he was coming back.
Oh, he said, there's 400 men coming towards you.
That's after he sent the angels to tell him, I'm coming back.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. He didn't know about it.
Why didn't he go and try and attack him when he was with Lot?
There's big questions. You could also ask, why didn't he attack him in the 14 years that he was sitting in Shem and Ever? It wasn't so far away. It was like an hour ride from Beersheba to Yerushalayim where he was. He could have gone then and attacked him. So, first of all, it could be that he's not as obsessed with it as we might think. Why? Because he sent his son already, Elipaz, to kill Yaakov. And he said, I killed him. So maybe Esau took his word for it. He said, yeah, probably killed him. Then when he finds out that he didn't kill him, he's probably a little angry at Elipaz. But Elipaz told him, well, I did what he told me to do, which is I took everything he had. So he's a poor pauper. He's like nothing. And what was Esau's beef with Yaakov? That he had taken his blessings. That he was going to be wealthy, that he was going to have all the riches that Esau wanted. So he doesn't have that anymore. So if he doesn't have that, then he's not so obsessed with killing him. And on top of that, he probably thinks he is dead. So he suddenly hears that he's alive and he's coming back, so now everything comes back. But that's the pshat of the story. That he didn't have any interest in him for a few years, for 20 years. He thought he wasn't there. He thought he wasn't part of the scenery anymore. Okay. The Medrash tells us that when Yaakov informed Esav that he had donkeys, he was referring to Mashiach, who is called a poor man and riding on a donkey. Mashiach's arrival is dependent on the Jewish people's elevation of the physical world to holiness and spirituality. This is why Yaakov informed Esav he had donkeys, that through remaining estranged from the physical aspects of Lavan's house, Yaakov was able to elevate and thus attain a level which allowed Mashiach to come. So Mashiach means, by definition, that donkey means chomer in Hebrew, chamo and chomer, that the material world is elevated to the state where it serves a higher purpose. This is why Yaakov sent messengers to greet Esav, to inform Esav that he was prepared for the arrival of the final redemption, as he had already elevated the physical, transforming it into something spiritual. Yaakov anticipated that Esav as well had elevated his portion of the world, and would therefore also be prepared for Mashiach's arrival. The messengers returned to Yaakov and informed him that although he was ready for Mashiach's arrival, his brother Esav had still not reached that level. Therefore, Mashiach was still unable to come. And so this is already the very deep Kabbalistic reading of this parsha. That what they are doing is that Mashiach cannot come until both brothers are ready and have performed their rectification of their part of the world. We're going to have to discuss this a lot more tomorrow and the day afterwards. But this is how loaded this discussion is. That Kabbalah and Chassidus turned this into a discussion not just about making peace between two brothers, but saying that this is what the Mashiach depends on. When Esav reconciles with Yaakov and they both are able to elevate their respective parts of reality, then the world can be redeemed. But until then, we're stuck. Okay? 6. Every story in the Torah contains lessons that can be applied to every person in every place and in all times. This is the eternity of the Torah. Every Jew, this is something that was taught by the Baal Shem Tov. Until then, it wasn't so clear to everyone that the Torah is so eternal that every single story in it is applicable to every person, in every place, in every time. Every Jew can learn a valuable lesson regarding his personal preparation for the arrival of Mashiach from this story about Yaakov and Esav. Although the world around him is still not prepared, each individual must ensure that he himself stands ready to greet Mashiach. So what is the Rebbe saying? The Rebbe is saying every individual has to take on the role of Jacob. Every Jew has to take on that role. If you're not ready, the world's not ready. Just as Yaakov did, he must work to elevate the physical world around him so that it should be prepared and ready for the coming of Mashiach. The way for a person to elevate his surroundings is through recognizing that he is merely there as a stranger. And that's what we started with yesterday. Im lavan garti. I lived with him as a foreigner, as a stranger, meaning that I'm a stranger to the physical realm. It's not that I don't know about the physical realm. Of course I know about it. I have to live. But I don't treat it as a place where I'm comfortable. It's very important. It's not that it's not important. I'm just not comfortable with it. Meaning that my essence is somewhere else, and I'm here only to do a job. I'm not here to enjoy the physical for its own sake right now. That will come, but that will come in the time of Mashiach. Before the redemption, you can't yet treat the physical dimension of reality as having true standing. It doesn't truly stand by itself yet. It has to be transformed. It has a purpose. And the purpose is to transform it into something that can carry the spirituality, something that can serve as a vessel for spirituality. So I don't enjoy it for its own sake. But when the Mashiach comes, then that will change. But right now it has to be that physicality is not his home. Rather, spirituality is where he really lives. With this mindset, the Jew is able to elevate physical into spiritual, thereby elevating the entire world and making it ready for Mashiach's arrival. The entire world is equally balanced with good deeds and the opposite, not so good deeds. And through one mitzvah alone, a person can tilt the world's deeds towards good and thereby bring redemption to the world. So again, he's taking the battle of Yaakov and Esav and turning it into every single person's personal battle inside. What is the personal battle? So like the Zohar says, that Yaakov and Esav are the Yetzer HaTov and Yetzer Hara. They symbolize the good inclination, the evil inclination, or later on the divine soul and the animal soul. And every person has this meeting between Yaakov and Esav inside of him, whether he's a Jew or not a Jew. With this mindset, the Jew is able to elevate physical into spiritual, thereby elevating the entire world and making it ready for Mashiach's arrival. The entire world is equally balanced with good deeds and the opposite, and through one mitzvah alone, a person can tilt the world's deeds towards good and thereby bring redemption to the world. The Rambam rules that as soon as the Jewish people do tshuva, meaning they return to God, Mashiach will come. The Alter Rebbe adds the word techef, meaning immediately, to this statement. From here we see that a person must not be discouraged by the fact that the world around him is not prepared for Mashiach, rather meaning that Yaakov was not deterred by the fact that Esav was not yet ready. Rather, he must focus on his own avodah, on his own service of God, and make sure that he personally brings about his own personal redemption. This in turn will bring about the redemption of the entire Jewish people. This is a very big deal. Is there such a thing as personal redemption? Yes. There is personal redemption, and then there's universal redemption. They're two different things. And you have to accept that at one level I have to, first of all, redeem myself. I can't do it at the expense of the world, but it's a necessary part. It's what the sages called klal hatzarich leprat v'prat hatzarich laklal. That the general, or the inclusive that needs the particular, the general that needs the particular, and the particular that needs the general. You can't figure out the world if you don't have two different axes upon which you base your life. There's the personal axis upon which my life revolves, but my axis is just one part of a much larger axis that the entire world revolves around. And so this entire axis can't start revolving, the big one, the general one that includes all of humanity, cannot start really revolving and moving in the right direction until my personal axis is moving in the right direction. 8. Yotes Kislev, the 19th of Kislev, which is next week on Monday. No, not Monday, Tuesday. The day the Alter Rebbe was freed from prison occurred in the week after Parashat Vayishlach. It was in the week of Parashat Vayishlach. Like this year. Everything that happens in the world is precise, and there is certainly a connection between the 19th of Kislev and the Parsha of the week. Chassidus enables every Jew to live above the physical element of the world around him. This allows him to focus on his own personal service of God, of realizing that he is only a stranger in this physical world, thus empowering him to refine the world and bring Mashiach. Through spreading the teachings of Chassidus, we will prepare the world to greet Mashiach and bring about his arrival, may it be speedily in our days. So we'll talk more about this, God willing, tomorrow. And thanks for joining us, Yaakov and me.
good night.
If you're Yaakov, who am I?
And good night.
We'll see you tomorrow at 7:30.